And we are very excited today to welcome Kim Henderson to the show. Hi, Kim.
Hi, Jonathan. Thanks for inviting me in. Great to be here.
Of course. I'm thrilled to talk with you. It's nice because we haven't had anyone in your industry yet. And I think a lot of viewers are pretty excited to kind of learn more of the details about what exactly you do and how you do things. And of course, how tech plays a little bit of a role in that as well.
Sure. Okay, great.
So maybe you want to introduce yourself just to get started?
That sounds super. I'm Kim Henderson, managing consultant with Cobalt Compass Solutions. And what we do is we provide operational and sales consulting along with training services in support to the staffing industry.
All right. So you've probably seen a lot of different things over the past year and a half, because I know some trends have been pretty crazy.
Yes, this has been actually unprecedented trends in the labor market, and that's probably a great segue to jump right in. The American Staffing Association actually just gave their Q3 State of the Industry, kind of coupled with labor trends that have been going on in the U.S. market. And believe it or not, today there's about 11 million jobs in the U.S. that are unfilled, and we have the lowest labor participation rate that we've actually had in decades. And about 64% of the organizations out there actually cite they're struggling to find people, right? So what do we do? You know, how do we hire and how do we retain in this type of a climate? And I think the main thing organizations need to do is first realize that kind of what got them here maybe won't get them to the next level. They have to go and look at how they've done things in the past and evaluate them and look at some of those old assumptions and actually start to stress test them one by one to see if what they're doing, it has been working, is going to continue to work.
It's interesting. In the land of tech, we call that A/B testing.
Yeah.
So you kind of try different approaches, and marketing gets into that too. So
Right.
So it does sound like you're implementing new tactics and various different things to try to attract more talent. Can you maybe tell me a little bit more about that, and maybe even how tech and different technologies kind of play into that?
Sure. Let's first start with hiring, right? And then we'll move into retention. So we'll go through some of the things that a lot of organizations are doing, not only to bring in technical talent, but overall professional talent. So let's start with some of the easy things. How about professional work weeks, flexible work weeks? And what we mean by that is people are getting creative with work schedules. So for instance, the DoD industry has been wildly successful in implementing a 980 schedule. So folks work 9 hours a day and then have every other Friday off. And some have even gone so far as to go and do a 4-day work week, 10 hours, and have every Friday off. Well, that may not be for every organization. I know the DoD, places like Lockheed Martin, Grumman, General Dynamics have implemented that and are reporting some pretty high levels of satisfaction. But what I'd say to any organization is maybe you don't want to go that bold is to have every other Friday off, but just allowing people some form of flexibility to either start at 7 or start at 9:30 and finish earlier or later can mean a world of difference to them. Another thing that we're seeing a lot of it, and this has almost become, for lack of a better word, trite, the hybrid work schedule, but actually 69% of folks that were interviewed during this American Staffing Association survey basically said they want some type of a hybrid model. So it looks like for the short term, it's actually here to stay. And we're finding that a lot of our organizations out there are actually providing some type of reimbursement to people that are driving a long way. So for folks, especially in healthcare, where they're maybe trying to get nurses and medical pros to go from one location to another, and maybe it's a bit remote or a bit rural or a small town, they're actually paying mileage stipends or just overall commuting stipends. So again, it's something a little creative that people are actually doing to go and attract the talent. Here's one that may be wildly unpopular with some people, but it's looking at its salary banding, right? Whether it's IT positions or finance and accounting or healthcare, whatever it is. If a company hasn't looked at its salary bands in the past 5 years, they're probably woefully under market, right? And in order to stay competitive in the industry, stay competitive with the company down the street that does what you do, that's something they really need to look at, right? In terms of that, it also fits hand in hand, vacation policy and holiday policy. I recently was working with a COO who got an offer, high level position in the tech industry, and they offered 15 days of vacation pay. While that sounds reasonably okay for that type of level, kind of what we're seeing out there more would be more of a 4-week type vacation. So again, can companies be creative with their holidays? Can they be creative with vacation? Some are actually getting that way. I've even seen a few go to unlimited vacation. While that sounds like a free-for-all and that no one would show up to work, what they actually found was people still did their jobs and didn't necessarily have all that time to take off, right? So it was almost more of a mental cushion and a great thing mentally, although people didn't, take off 5 months at one time.
Right.
Sign-on bonuses, Jonathan, we're seeing that anywhere from the retail industry all the way into tech. And a lot of organizations have some, resistance to think, gosh, what if I give these folks a bonus and they leave, right?
Yeah.
But ways to combat that are organizations have found that you can put the bonus in thirds, maybe a third when they sign on, and perhaps a third 6 months and a third a year from now, or make it prorated if they leave within a year. So again, minimizing the risk to the organization, and kind of like everybody wins with that. I'd say one of the final techniques in terms of attraction is examining medical benefits. And this is one I think that companies have ignored for years, right? I think anyone that's actually, been to a doctor knows that deductibles and copays and out-of-pocket expenses are through the roof, right? And paying for insurance, even through your employer, is incredibly expensive. So I would challenge an employer, and many have, they've gone back and said, hey, our benefits could be better. They could be cheaper. If they're offering just some type of catastrophic high deductible one plan in an HSA, they're probably not going to attract the best talent, especially if it's talent that has, families and children that they're putting underneath.
Right.
So that could be a real competitive advantage today, medical benefits, and oftentimes companies overlook it. And then a final piece, I'll put this in the category of reimbursement. So tech folks in particular, right? They want to get certifications, whether that's a PMP or CCIE or CCNA, whatever that is. They want to keep their certifications and have lifelong learning, and they want their company to pay for that, right? And that also fits hand in hand with tuition reimbursement. So, while these things aren't necessarily free, if you're going to pay, if a company's going to pay for those certifications, it really is a differentiator in the market. And in terms of tuition reimbursement, I think the past 15 or 20 years, we didn't see any companies doing it whatsoever. Too expensive, right? But now some companies are looking at it and they're saying, okay, maybe we can pay a portion of it, whether it's 10%, 20%, just something, to go and attract that type of talent. And then finally, from an attraction standpoint, the perks, right? Is there a 401k that's being matched? Is there, a meal stipend, or is there employee stock to attract people? So all these things, I think organizations are looking at to attract folks and get them in the door, whether it be tech or other professions. And a lot of these things are working. So they have to evaluate and determine, is it right for me? Is it right for my organization? But they should be looking at it.
It's a lot of levers that you can pull. So there's a lot of things that you can kind of look at and try and do to kind of make your company more attractive than the one down the road.
No, that's absolutely correct. There is no one size fits all.
Right. That's why I like tech. It's a 1 or a 0. It's a yes or a no. But in your industry, there's a ton of different ways to do things. So 2 things, and I totally know what you mean about offering to pay for college. I've even seen commercials. I think it was Starbucks or Target that put out a commercial that, because they're trying to get right out in front of maybe even attracting new customers who kind of agree with that line of thought or support that. So it leads me to my next question. Where does a company's brand play into the hiring process? So how do companies kind of, get their message out there? What goes into that, and what kind of effect does that have on attracting the right talent?
Sure. That's a great question. There's power in your brand, right? No matter who you are. It's almost like, be active in the local community that you're in, be visible in the community that you're in, right? Whether that's charities, professional associations, networking events, sponsorships, whatever it is, be out there and have your company be at the forefront of the community, right?
Yeah.
And along with that, people need to understand what your brand's all about and what it means. One way that we're seeing that, companies somewhat don't do themselves a good service is by reviews that are out there on Glassdoor. Companies need to be aware that candidates are much more savvy today than say they were about looking for a job 20 years ago. They can go on Glassdoor and learn a lot about your brand. So
Right.
they need to be out there. They need to be organizations be cognizant of that, working to always improve the brand. In addition to it, video. I think it could be used a lot more by organizations, right? We know any video today has the ability to go viral and spread everywhere. So if you've
That's
got
why
a
we're on
really
video.
yeah, there we go. If you have a really great story to tell and you have some great features and benefits about your organization, you need to showcase them, right? And that can mean the difference between an employee that's on the fence between taking your offer and an offer at another organization. If they can see a video that shows, wow, they've got some unique and interesting things here, right? Just a quick example. We worked with Google as a customer for years, and I went out there and, it's a thing, certain things get you excited. They actually had 9 different cafeterias, all that were massive with different themes, and food was free, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for employees. So we actually took a video of that and showed it to our candidates to say, hey, it's may not be important to all people, but it's actually a unique feature. So point is, it's all about branding, and your employees are your brand ambassadors, right? So make certain that your message is out there and it's being perceived in the right way.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I personally see that a lot in the tech space. People typically want to work on tech projects that have a good social cause or is doing good for one cause or another. So, that working on tech that is researching how to turn salt water into drinkable water is much more exciting than working on tech on how to more efficiently foreclose on somebody's house when they're out of payment. So it's interesting, but if you're one of these companies that, is aligned with these, these more positive social impacts or causes, just from my experience, I could see that being a major selling point.
It's interesting that you bring that up, Jonathan. As part of that ASA survey, Staffing Association survey I mentioned earlier, out of the respondents, 80% of them said that a company that engages in and has a good degree of social responsibility, that was important to 80% of the respondents. So that's a lot higher than what we probably would have seen 10 years ago. So the company has to be cognizant of that as well.
Yeah. So one of the things I'm thinking about just as you're going through this is all the different candidate pools out there and all the different, areas that candidates are in. And, I'm even thinking about changing your message depending on what candidate pool you go after, or, what kind of tech do you use to target the right candidate pools. Any ideas on how you go after the different candidate pools, how you identify them, how you target?
Sure. That's a great question, because right now, if companies go and fish in the same pond in the same way that they always have, they're probably going to get the same results. They really do need to be looking at different candidate pools, to find these professional workers, to find tech workers. So a couple of ideas that organizations have looked into, and I've watched some successfully implement, are first, look at older workers, right? So a lot of these individuals are vastly underemployed. And they were hit a little bit harder by some of the COVID layoffs than, say, their younger counterparts. So I think we agree we could all benefit from multi-generational, individuals within a workplace, right? These individuals bring a lot of experience and expertise and value and knowledge of their particular industry or knowledge of tech. So a lot of companies actually have teamed with AARP. They have a senior employment program, and they've been able to realize that, wow, these folks actually, quote unquote, have a lot of gas left in the tank. They have the knowledge, they have the skills, and they're often overlooked, by a lot of employers. So people are starting to, realize that just because someone may be, 60 years old, that they probably still have an act two that's left in them and a lot of value to provide. So conversely, flip that over on a 180, new college grads. And this is one that year after year, I've had so many college grads that have come to me in the staffing industry and said, gosh, I need a job. I can't find a job. No one will hire me. How do I go about this? And the sad fact of the past was most of our client companies, whether it be tech or any other professional type industry, wasn't really interested in paying a fee for a college graduate. Well, now they're actually starting to realize that, hey, this is a great pool of talent to tap into, and they're teaming with the colleges and the universities and getting on site to kind of get these folks while they're young and groomable and moldable, and they're training them, realizing if we can't find this talent out there, let's build it ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And some are even being a little bit sharper and saying, let's get to them before they graduate, and starting a lot of programs for internships. They can almost cherry pick, the ones they want in their organization. So again, another candidate pool that in the past had really sadly been overlooked. And going hand in hand with that, people are reentering the workforce today, right? So you may have had a decade ago folks that left either to take care of aging parents or to raise children that are going, hey, I want to get back in this. I'm a CPA, or I'm a Java developer. I want to start work again. And again, in the past, I think, much to their disadvantage, customers would come to us and say, there's a gap in their resume. I don't want to take a gamble on them. But organizations are now realizing that, okay, we can take these individuals. They already have a basic knowledge. It's just updating their skills. So that's another candidate pool to tap into. And a final one, Jonathan, and this one could be somewhat controversial, but there are some companies that are doing this successfully. It's called second chance hiring. And I learned a lot about this through ASA. So there's about 70 million Americans that are in the United States right now that have some form of criminal record. And 1 in 3 really struggle to kind of acclimate and get back into meaningful work. So some staffing companies have teamed with organizations to kind of introduce these individuals into organizations, whether they be, training them for technical skills or getting them certifications, CPA, whatever that is in the financial services side. And what they're finding is these folks are actually working out pretty well, right? And of course, these are all non-violent offenders, right? These are people that maybe have had a DUI conviction or some other non-violent conviction, and basically saying, hey, somebody may have made a mistake 15 years ago, should we go and hold that against them as they evolve, today? And they're looking at it now as a viable candidate pool. There's actually staffing companies that specialize in this, believe it or not. So again, not for everybody, but it is something that's evolving and emerging that companies are starting to use.
I love to hear that. I mean, the worst minute of someone's life, one mistake, shouldn't hurt
You're
them
right.
and family members 15 years down the road or whatever it is. And on a personal note, I have a family member that's been impacted by that. So, but I love to hear stuff like that. I love to hear all the different job pools out there. So it's
Been a lot of
promising.
success with it.
Yeah. So, all right. So one more major question and 2 fun ones, and we'll get you out of here. So definitely talked a lot about, attracting talent, going after people, looking at job pools. How do we get people in the door? How do you keep people, especially because we're all seeing all the articles on the mass job exodus and everyone's leaving their companies, and, what's the advice there? What do you do? How do you keep that talent?
Yeah, great question. Korn Ferry recently did a survey that basically said that 30% of the people that left their jobs last year because they wanted to reevaluate their priorities, 24% left for a clear advancement, a clear pathway of advancement, and the final 23% left because of pay and benefits. So some of the things that we can do besides what we talked about before, a lot of things that we use to attract talent, you can also retain them, things like the flexible schedules, better benefits, vacation days, things like that. But other things we need to look at from a retention standpoint are upskilling and reskilling, making certain, especially in the tech world, that we are taking these individuals, whether it be on the job training or not, but getting them exposure and getting them certifications and getting them the skills that they need to stay current so they want to stay with the company, right? Creating a clear advancement pathway. We just saw that cited as a factor for people to leave. People need to understand that if I do X, that there's a very clear pathway for me to get to Y as long as I produce a result, right? No one wants to sit in the same job for 20 years and do nothing or do the same thing. Employee titles. while some are very structured in large organizations, if it's not structured, titles mean a lot to a lot of people in terms of to their, I guess, their mental worth, not only to themselves, but to the workplace. So it can be a unique type of retention tool for organizations. And then finally, a couple other things, building a culture that's going to create employee loyalty. I'm sure, Jonathan, you've had employers that you love and you would follow. And then there's others that I think we've all worked for that maybe we wouldn't follow and we didn't learn so much. So creating that leadership culture where coaching and mentoring and really caring about the success of employees, which goes hand in hand with creating a mentor-mentee type of a program, especially with people working from home more that might be newer in their careers. This is a very, very important thing. And finally, survey your workers. What do they think, right? It's we all have different opinions and different things are important to us. Survey them. They'll tell you. And then those are the things that you can work on.
That it's funny you said that, because that's what I'm sitting here thinking. I'm like, man, there's 20 different things that person A might want, and then there's a different 20 things that person B might want. And how do you standardize that, make it fair for everyone? That's a lot.
Surveys are a great way to get honest answers, especially when they're anonymous.
what's your survey tool that you like to use?
The ones that I've been involved with are just SurveyMonkey.
Okay.
And then the results are put together, and it's amazing what you learn. It really is, true, unfiltered information, because it's anonymous. Okay. So I recommend organizations do that.
There's some cool ones. I can give you some other cool, fun survey tools out there if you're interested. But okay, so we're coming up on time here. So if they say people can only take away 3 things from a long meeting here, do you have any 3 highlights that you can leave our viewers with, or a couple key takeaways?
Sure. So I think right now about half the organizations that they talked to said that the labor shortage is starting to impact their operations, right? And that's serious if you can't make commitments to your customers and to your internal stakeholders. So takeaway number 1, think differently about how you actually put yourself out there to hire individuals. Look into different talent pools to locate people that you weren't necessarily considering before, and look at some of your attraction tools that we talked about. Whether it be training, whether it be hybrid, whether it be different work schedules. Challenge the old way that you did things, and again, stress test all of your assumptions when it comes to hiring. And then conversely, when it comes to retention, start to listen to your employees, build a culture that they want to stay in, right? And I think by listening and asking the right open-ended questions, you'll learn what's important to them. We went through some of those items today, but again, there could be others, but they don't know unless they ask. And again, don't make assumptions, not in this environment. In summation, this is probably going to be a marathon. A lot of companies feel that moving into 2022, we're going to have the same type of labor environment. So it's not a sprint. It's probably not going away. They're going to have to look at things differently to get the talent and keep it.
Yeah, very, very important stuff. And the world is always changing. New technologies coming out. So you always got to keep staying on the front of things.
Absolutely.
All right. Final question. What is your favorite piece of technology?
There are a lot. I would say hands down, really has to be GPS. I don't have to say, you're probably expecting a better answer than that.
No, that's actually that's a great one. We haven't gotten that.
Yeah, when you're in different cities and you're going to customer sites, whatever it is, there's nothing better than knowing that your phone can get you there and never having to use a map or 100 years ago, MapQuest or any other tool.
Right.
Can get you there. So GPS, can't live without it.
Remember when you used to have a GPS and a cell phone, and you used to have both, and you have to figure out which one to charge in the car? And
yes, and which one was going to be accurate, or which one would you listen to? But when it comes to being in strange cities and working with customers, can't live without it, especially for people that may be directionally challenged at times.
Yeah. Well, Kim, thank you so much. I know that the recruiting and job market and everything you do has been so front and center lately. And it's of utmost importance that these companies find and attract talent, not only for the company, but for, the young people and the new people, and even the older people that I'm hearing about from those job pools. So absolutely vital information. And thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you, Jonathan, for inviting me in. And hopefully we get organizations to start to think about this a little more, with a little different lens.
Absolutely. All right, Kim. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Have a great one.